Welcome friends to my new channel with another video. As always, if you enjoy these videos, please make sure to hit subscribe button. What's the worst meal you've ever been served in someone's home? My grandma had signature dishes, which meant it was all she made, ever. Swiss steak consisted of the cheapest cut of meat, cooked until hard and gray, and then she'd dump a can of mushrooms on top and burn those until they turned into a congealed topping. Ramen noodles were usually cooked just to the point of liquidity. If she was feeling fancy, she'd dump in a can of tuna and mix that all together with the seasoning packets. Fruit salad was orange or lime jello mixed with canned fruit. The topping would consist of mayonnaise and cream cheese spread over the top. She also served reheated McDonald's French fries and used expired condiments and seasonings. She also washed her dishes with Ajax or Comet. My sister tried her hand at ranch potatoes, but since she didn't have the ranch seasoning, she just decided to pour ranch dressing over raw potatoes and bake it. Nothing like hot greasy ranch glop over semi-cooked red potatoes. A stir fry with a cup of vinegar in it. My friend misread the instructions that said 1 tablespoon and put a cup in instead. Undercooked chicken with strawberry yogurt as a topping, cooked with the yogurt plopped on top and an orange slice as a garnish. Truly bizarre. In Mount Pleasant, MI. There's a culinary tradition of a side dish consisting only of peas, peanuts, and a lot of Miracle Whip. My old girlfriend's family was very excited to serve it, and I had to act like it wasn't some wildly weird shit that nobody should ever put in their mouths. My grandma once served me burnt to a crisp hamburgers and hot dogs with dish soap washed salad. Yes, you could taste it. For dessert, there was cinnamon jello made hot tamales. It was revolting. At least she did burn the meat though, because it had been thawing in the summer heat outside for the entire day. Grandma's meals were always a little terrifying. If she didn't cook the meat long enough, there was plenty of food poisoning to be had. My mother's grandmother, whom I never met, wouldn't use ingredients in recipes she didn't like. So, no baking powder or baking soda. Henna recipe called for it because she tasted these once and didn't like them. She didn't use salt in any that was supposed to be sweet, like a pie or other dessert. Apparently, it was pretty wretched. A guy I was dating in high school tried to impress me by making chicken Alfredo. He didn't have heavy cream for the sauce, so he used French vanilla coffee creamer and didn't tell me. Brother's wife put 5 boneless chicken breasts in a pan, poured canned peaches and canned pears over them, and baked at 350 for an hour. Nothing else. It was a secret family recipe she grew up with and loved. It was terrible and I felt poisoned. It wasn't so much a bad meal, but the method of serving was different. A friend invited me and a couple of other friends to dinner when I was in high school. His mom served homemade chicken soup, which was fine. There was chocolate cake for dessert, but instead of serving it on separate plates, she went around to each of our places and sliced off a piece into each of our soup bowls, each of which still had some broth. Chocolate cake flavored with chicken broth is not a flavor I really want to repeat. When I was around 9 or 10, my friend's mom offered me half a stick of butter as a snack. Apparently my friend's favorite afternoon snack was a full stick of butter. I declined as respectfully as you might expect a 9 or 10-year-old would. Added, full stick instead of full sick. Though I guess the latter is appropriate as well. My aunt used to let my cousin put butter on her pizza. Not a small amount of butter either. She had weird body issues and was always on a fad diet of some kind and had read that fat is good for you. Apparently whatever she read didn't distinguish between your body needs some fat, a few almonds or some full-fat yogurt is good for you, and put butter on your pizza. Neither of them were fat, but my cousin ended up with a hell of an eating disorder. Who would have guessed? Edit for all the keto kids. I'm not arguing that fat isn't good for you. My aunt read that fat is good for you and took it to an extreme, and that's all there is to my story. I'm not attacking your diet. Geez. My girlfriend attempted to make a recipe from Skyrim called apple cabbage stew. I'm not proud to say I lied to her and said it was good, but she looked like she was on the verge of tears, so I choked it down. That was the last time we tried anything from that recipe collection. When I was about 11, my family and I went to my mom's half-brother's sister's house for the first and last time. That lady was crazy. She wanted to host this whole fancy dinner party, which consisted of half a bag of chips as the appetizer, undercooked ham, and this abomination she had the audacity to call baked macaroni and cheese. Plus, to make it better, she didn't start cooking until after we got there. She told us to come over at 6 and started cooking at 7. From what I remember, she used Kraft mac and cheese powder mix, but she used different noodles, and then she made too much noodles, so she put slices of American cheese on top of it, and then she put crushed and whole graham crackers on top of it and baked it for just the right amount of time where half of the cheese wasn't melted. I honestly almost cried at the dinner table. Even her husband was like, "WTF did you make?" which made the experience 100x more awkward. And to make the whole thing even worse, her son wouldn't let me have a turn at GTA 3, even after I told him the cheat code to get the tank. Homeboy didn't even know about cheat codes until I told him. Edit. When I said my mom's half-brother's sister, I meant that my mom shares a father with her half-brother, but my aunt has a different father than both of them, but shares a mother with my uncle. So she's not really related by blood at all to us. Which I guess in retrospect would be my mom's half-brother's half-sister, but either way we thankfully never had any real family obligation to go over her house again. Does it count if it was my home but a new roomie? Roomie wanted to cook for us to celebrate us all getting our first apartment together. He made cinnamon-covered chicken breast. We tried our best but couldn't handle it. He put cinnamon in again when he made mac and cheese. When we admitted we didn't care for it, he insisted it was because we were used to eating TV dinners and crap and had never experienced gourmet cooking before. Which admittedly, we hadn't, but if that's gourmet cooking, I'm happy to be ignorant. Friend's dad when I was young had the distinct skill of barbecuing meat which is burnt black on the outside and raw on the inside. Also I recall at the same house when they had a roast and were slicing it their dog was on the counter, biting into or licking every piece they sliced before they finished cutting and served the plate as is on the table. I've got two solid contenders. One was at a great aunt's house and she served spinach and milk. Like she literally got spinach, wilted it a little and then poured warm milk over it. I think it was supposed to be a creamed spinach type deal, but I was gagging with every bite. Second was a spaghetti bolognese, but it had chunks of cooked apple in it. I ate around the apple as best I could, but it was truly horrendous. The first Thanksgiving I spent with my ex-wife's family was terrible and scary. I grew up in the restaurant business, so everyone in my family can cook and I took that for granted. First a turkey, unseasoned or marinated, full of box stuffing. They were taking it out of the oven when I mentioned that it was clearly not cooked yet. It had only been in for maybe 3 hours, the skin was still pale, and the temp gauge was still down. I was told that those gauges never work, so no point in using that as a guide, and they did not own a meat thermometer for me to prove my point. They cut the first piece to reveal a soft pink core of raw turkey. Instead of putting it back in the oven or even cutting up strips to pan cook, they decided to microwave each portion. They did not offer to microwave the stuffing. I refused to have any claiming I did not like stuffing. I had one small bite of turkey and made it disappear when no one was looking. The sides were okay for the most part, no seasoning or flair, but I filled up in it. The rolls were cool and raw in the middle, so no rolls for me. Finally it was time for dessert. They made pumpkin pie. Looking at it I was already questioning the texture, but as I am a cook and not a baker, I figured I could just be overcritical from the dinner fiasco. I took my first bite and nearly spit it back out onto my plate. The whipped cream was the only thing that saved me from doing so. I asked what recipe they used for the pie. Apparently it was a silly question, as they just used a pre-made crust and added a can of pumpkin, no condensed milk, no sugar. Nothing but the canned pumpkin and the crust. Every year afterwards either we hosted dinner for her parents or we visited my family. I was invited over to a guy's house who tried to cook steak sauce vide for the first time. It was flavorless and rubbery. Dessert was an attempt at ice cream sauce vide. Who knew? It came out tasting like plain yogurt that was hot rather than cold. I still can't figure it out. He topped it with root beer gelatin balls. Most bizarre meal ever and poorly executed. My first girlfriend in high school. Her mom was the best cook on earth. She made mashed potatoes that were so good they could sit in the fridge for 3 days uncovered and you could gobble them up cold. I had a reputation with her family for being able to just demolish everything she made. One time we went to her dad's mom's house for her dad's birthday. My girlfriend and her mother rode separately and they both warned me that the grandma was not a good cook. I figured how bad can it be? My god, it was so fucking bad. Literally every dish was atrocious. Unseasoned boiled meat would have been better than the shit she made. The worst part was her mashed potatoes. They were gray and watery and tasted like death. Everyone there was fully aware of my die-hard love of mashed potatoes. I managed to eat everything on my plate out of politeness, and when they saw I was done, my girlfriend's dad, his brother and his mom all started hounding me to get seconds. I had to come up with an excuse that I was sick. I felt bad, but goddamn that was the worst food I've ever eaten. I left feeling bad for my girlfriend's dad and his brother for having to grow up eating that slop. Edit. They were not pushing me to eat more because they were being dicks. They knew how much I could eat and how much I ate on a regular basis. They assumed I was eating less than usual because I didn't want to eat up more than my share at a big family event. They were trying to show me that I was welcome to eat anything I wanted and in any amount I wanted. I could go on for hours about all the messed up shit her family said and did, but this specific incident was born out of attempted kindness. My grandmother was such a terrible cook that once when she was cooking corned beef, I walked into her kitchen and promptly threw up due to the smell. My dad once said that he thought she was a good cook until he went into the army. He wasn't trying to be funny, it was just an honest observation. I was in a man's house in Afghanistan, and as is tradition, he made us tea. The tea wasn't great, it was really just warm, dirt-flavored water as far as I could tell. But to be polite, I consumed my cup's worth. As was expected of me. Next, he gave us rice. Now, these guys are poor, but it's rude to turn down food. So what you do is this. Take a little bit. An appetizer-sized amount. Eat it relatively slowly and thank them profusely. Easy enough. Well, unfortunately in this particular instance, the gentleman was lacking in certain utensils, dinnerware and OSHA standards. The rice was served to us on these slabs of shale this guy used as plates and had an unholy amount of gravel, not sand, mixed in. Not to exaggerate, but the pieces of stone in the rice were dancing up to pea-sized. This dude starts munching, so we all follow suit, trying to minimize chewing and maximize swallowing, haha. Again, we are this rockerous with our fingers since he had no utensils for us. His teeth were pretty jacked up, so I can only assume he eats rocks regularly. But anyways, super cool dude, super kind gesture, and I hope we were nothing short of gentlemanly in our acceptance of his hospitality.